Good afternoon. Actually, I'm Mr. I am not a doctor. I am a student, public health in China. And this is my first experience, but I hope I will do good. The title is just its comparison and the associations of comprehensive knowledge and acceptance attitude towards people living with HIV/AIDS among women of 3 East African countries. The presentation says the abstract, introduction, something. The global estimates for the adult HIV/AIDS was within in 2013 was 35 million, and the new HIV infections was 2.1 million, and deaths due to AIDS 1.5 million. You can see just normally the distributions all over the world. It was 24.7 million was in Sub-Saharan Africa. It was around maybe 70% of the total. And it's the same thing, just the new infections. So come back that the HIV is the leading cause of death in women of reproductive age, especially in Sub-Saharan Africa, which carried the higher burden of in women. And they accounted about 49% of the people living with HIV/AIDS. So if we estimate it is somehow very high because the children are there and the males, if subtracted, that's too much. And one of the it can be also preventable because the most common route of transmission is the heterosexual. More than 90% is heterosexual. While in other regions it could be associated with drug injections, men sex, or the gay or homosexuals. But in Sub-Saharan Africa, it's most of the time heterosexual intercourse. As a result, women and girls are mentioned as one of key populations for intervention. Next is Southern Sub-Saharan Africa. The Eastern Africa is the most affected with HIV/AIDS, especially or particularly in women. And the prevalence is just 14.5%. Moreover, science reveals that young women were 3 to 4 times to be HIV positive, like in Kenya and Tanzania. Therefore, it has great importance to study in women related to HIV/AIDS and epidemic to obesity. Comprehensive knowledge about HIV is an indicator commonly used to measure knowledge of the essential facts about HIV transmission and prevention. And according to United Nations General Assembly, the Convention, 95% of young adults need to have correct and comprehensive knowledge of HIV/AIDS to prevent or to keep themselves from the disease. However, this is far below the target, since only 30% of young women demonstrated comprehensive knowledge of AIDS in national household surveys in Sub-Saharan Africa. Most of studies show that the awareness is high in Sub-Saharan Africa, while the comprehensive knowledge is low. It could be associated with the transmission, or it could be associated with the myths or misconceptions. And some studies was done in northern Uganda, and most of the youth or the youngsters have only 23% of the comprehensive knowledge. So just higher awareness alone cannot be compact for the HIV/AIDS. They should have to know the prevention and transmission methods, and they should have to reject the misconceptions about the myths of the HIV/AIDS. Another subject in this study is the acceptance attitude towards living with HIV/AIDS. And it's mostly dealing with the individuals to this. If individuals having something that's negative attitudes, they will prevent them from disclosure their status, testing, and also at the same time also it will be difficult for follow-up for the adherence of their treatment, as the treatment is one method of prevention. Just for instance, in the Lesotho DHS survey, that 40% of women only have the acceptance attitude. Noticeably, comprehensive knowledge on HIV/AIDS as well as acceptance towards people living with HIV/AIDS are fundamental subjects in prevention and halting HIV infections among women of reproductive age. Therefore, women from East Africa countries, namely Burundi, Ethiopia, and Kenya, were involved in this study. Several studies were conducted on HIV/AIDS knowledge and attitudes towards people with HIV/AIDS in 3 East African countries. However, they were not national representative or were not based on the AIDS indicator survey, the measured HS indicators which is acceptable by UNAIDS, at the same time also by the UNICEF. Hence, there could be no comparative study conducted as well. I do know HIV/AIDS is one of the global diseases, so they can have some sharing experience from one country to another, even though there are some cultural difference or some cultural difference or population or geographical difference, but they need some sharing experience or just having common understanding. Hence, there could be no comparative study conducted as well to fill these gaps. National representative data from DHS was taken to investigate aspects of comprehensive knowledge and attitude related to HIV/AIDS, and compare the level of comprehensive knowledge and attitude towards people living with HIV among women aged 15 to 49 years old for 3 countries. When it comes to the methodology, the data source was from the DHS Demographic Health Survey of 3 countries from the East Africa. And the method is the cross-sectional, as we know all. This multi-stage probability sampling technique was used in the DHS in order to have some national representative samples. The samples was 9,389 from Burundi, 16,515 from Ethiopia, and 8,444 from Kenya. We have 2 variables, the dependent variables, the comprehensive knowledge and the acceptance attitude. And the comprehensive knowledge on HIV/AIDS was having some binary responses, and just they are assessing through the 5 statements, which are developed by the measure DHS assessment questions or the UNAIDS standards. Similarly, for the acceptance of the attitude, we are assessed using 4 questions. And the same thing, they have the binary response, yes or no response. While for the independent variables, they are the socio-demographic characteristics and the economics, just that the basic, the age, place of residence, could be urban or rural, religion, educational level, marital status, and Wales index. The statistical analysis, we used the descriptive statistical and multivariate logistic regression were used. The binary outcome was defined as yes if woman answered all the 5 questions, and no if otherwise. And for the acceptance attitude, yes if the woman responded correctly for the 4 statements. Final 3 countries were compared among each other using the adjusted odds ratio with the 95 confidence interval, and the p-value was significant less than 0.05. And the analysis was done using the SPSS version 20. When it comes to the result, Table 1 presents the distribution among 3 East African women of age 15 to 49. In Table 2 was the associates of comprehensive HIV/AIDS knowledge among women 15 to 49, 3 East African countries. Let me pass. Is it possible to see? General, the awareness was high. There just more than 96.3% have heard about the HIV/AIDS. While when it came to comprehensive knowledge, it was below 50 or below half in all 3 countries. And the same thing for the acceptance attitude was low. Even though in Burundi it's slightly high, almost they have the same, while in Ethiopia it was slightly low. When it comes to age, the average age is 27.8. The mean age of the respondents, and most of them were, the distribution was somehow okay. 15 to 19 years old, the most dominant in all countries, 3 countries. When it came to place of residence, most of the individuals were residing or living in the rural areas. 77.5 is 7 and 69. At the educational level, most of the respondents were in Burundi and in Ethiopia. It was 50% in Ethiopia and 40.9% in Burundi was elementary. Sorry, no education, and the elementary was 42 and 35.5%, while in Kenya it was 52.2. When it came to religion, most of the respondents were having the Christianity. The marital status, never in union was high, but the most dominant was the married individuals in all three countries. In the Wales index, the richest were predominant and followed by the poorest. This is also related to the comprehensive knowledge. Here in Ethiopia, there is no any significant associations in the age groups. While in Kenya, all the age groups were, except the older one, 40, 44, and 45 to 49, other was having some significant relationships, just as we say. The same thing for Burundi. The older age, 45 to 49 have some, and the younger 20-24 was not significant, while others have significant associations. When we came to the region, Burundi have some significant, well, the women living in the urban areas have higher comprehensive knowledge than in the rural. The same thing in Ethiopia, but in Kenya there is no any significant associations. In the educational level, in all three East African countries, the educational level is significant. Educated people have higher comprehensive knowledge than the illiterate or women with no education. When it came to religion, only the Christians have significant associations toward comprehensive knowledge. Here, the current marital status, only in Burundi, the woman which was married had higher significance knowledge than the neighbor in union, the reference group. And the world index, all the three East African countries have higher comprehensive knowledge than the poorest, even though it is different even though it is not uniform. Most of the individuals with the richest have higher comprehensive knowledge than the poorest individuals. When it comes to acceptance or the tolerance of the individuals towards people living with HIV/AIDS, in Burundi and Kenya, all of the age groups was having more accepting attitudes than the youngsters, 15 to 19 years old. While in Ethiopia, again, there is no any significant relationships or association. And the place of residence, just only Ethiopian women have higher comprehensive knowledge, those living in the urban than the rural individuals. The same thing in education, except in Burundi, those who are having higher educational level, all have significant associations. And women with primary and secondary education have higher comprehensive knowledge than the women with no education. When it comes to religion, women from Kenya, the Christians have higher acceptance attitude than the women with no religion. While in Ethiopia, we don't have any women with no religion, so the reference group is women with the other religion. And the marital status, women which are never in union have higher comprehensive knowledge than the women married and the women living with partner. While in Burundi, married women have higher acceptance attitudes than women never in union. And when we come to the world index category, just women which have higher social economic status or wealthier women have higher acceptance attitude than women with than the poorest group. When it comes to the comparison among the countries, Burundi have the upper hand, having higher acceptance attitude, and women from Burundi have higher comprehensive knowledge than Ethiopia, and at the same time also, women from Kenya have higher comprehensive knowledge than Kenyan women have higher comprehensive knowledge than the Ethiopians. Just as we see, just the p-values or the adjust odds ratio. When it comes to the discussion, women of all East African countries had nearly universal awareness. As we see the HIV/AIDS awareness was just assessed with one question. Have you heard about HIV/AIDS? Yes or no? So they heard most of the women, around more than 96% in all three East African countries. And similar sites were reported in the Sub-Saharan Africa. They heard something about HIV/AIDS, as they know about HIV/AIDS disease. However, one of three East African countries, they lack comprehensive knowledge on HIV/AIDS. And they observed the comprehensive knowledge was below half in all three countries. Less than 0.5% of the participants had comprehensive knowledge of HIV/AIDS in Burundi, 48.9% in Kenya, 46.3%, while in Ethiopia, 19.3%. Similar population-based study in Bolivia revealed that women had 31% educated knowledge of HIV/AIDS. Moreover, research conducted in Bangladesh shows that comprehensive knowledge in transmission and prevention was 45.4%. And globally, less than 30% of young women have comprehensive and correct knowledge of HIV/AIDS. Women living in urban area were more likely to have higher comprehensive knowledge of HIV/AIDS compared to women living in the rural areas. A broad difference between rural and urban areas related to HIV/AIDS comprehensive knowledge has been also reported from other sub-Saharan Africans and other areas. The women living in urban areas might have more access to education, may have more access to mass media, and they can have better knowledge and comprehensive knowledge than those people living in the rural areas. And the result showed that male respondents from Burundi have significant difference in comparison to the reference group and comprehensive knowledge of HIV/AIDS. The survey asserted married women may have some exchange of idea or sharing of ideas with their husbands or the family members probably. However, studies conducted among Kenyan young women reveals that ever married women had less comprehensive knowledge of HIV than the never in union. It was in 2011. The most common the determinant is education. The studies reveals that education have a great role in determining person's social status, income, and access to information. And this study showed educated women were more likely to have comprehensive knowledge of HIV/AIDS than women with no education. As the educational level of women increases, they are more likely to have highest comprehensive knowledge on HIV/AIDS. In line to this study conducted in Kenya, also reports that women with higher educational level had higher comprehensive knowledge than women with no education. Moreover, similar studies were reported in Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and South and North America. And Wales index was significantly associated towards comprehensive knowledge of HIV/AIDS in the selected three East African countries. Wealthier people may have more access to education as well as mass media, hence they can get correct and comprehensive knowledge of HIV/AIDS in comparison to the poorest people. People living in the lower socioeconomic status tend to gain less benefit from information flow than their counterparts, the higher socioeconomic status. Similar results were also reported that people with good socioeconomic status were having more comprehensive knowledge than the lower. Gender inequalities tabus associated with the discussion of sexuality and sexual health, the submissive role of women in a relationship, and the male control of decision making regarding sexual relations may also explain why African women are less knowledgeable about HIV/AIDS. It can be some of the factors which are contributed to with lower educational and with lower socioeconomic status can have aggravating the condition from accessing the comprehensive knowledge of the HIV/AIDS. When it comes to acceptance, attitude, or the tolerance, the same result was found. The same thing here is also less than 50%. And according to UNAIDS report 2014, negative attitudes are common in many parts of the world. However, increasing HIV knowledge and awareness among the general population enables people to protect themselves and works to reduce stigma and discrimination against people living with HIV/AIDS. In this study, all age groups had significantly higher acceptance attitudes towards people living with HIV in comparison to the reference group women aged 15 to 19 in Burundi and Kenya. Our result is consistent with the research conducted previously elsewhere. However, women from Ethiopia did not show any statistical significance, and similar results were reported previously. The same thing, just the assets were somehow similar with the comprehensive knowledge. Women living in the urban areas had higher acceptance attitude than women living in the rural areas. People living in urban areas have more access to education, mass media exposure, and health services such as voluntary counseling testing. Hence, they can avoid misconceptions and misunderstanding about the disease, and they can have positive attitudes towards people living with HIV/AIDS. The same thing with the education. People, women having higher educational level have higher acceptance attitudes than women with no education. And the likelihood of acceptance attitudes towards people living with HIV increases with getting of better education. Those women with secondary school have better acceptance than the elementary, and the women who are having the higher educational level in the college and university level will have more than the secondary education. And some research will also have the same result. And married women from Burundi and not living together separated or from Ethiopia had higher acceptance attitudes towards people living with HIV than women never in union. However, married and living together women from Kenya had less acceptance attitudes than women never in union. This finding is consistent with the previous research reported. Wells index in all three East African countries has statistical significant associations on acceptance attitudes towards people living with HIV/AIDS. Women in highest socioeconomic status were more likely to have highest acceptance attitudes towards people living with HIV/AIDS, even though the pattern is not uniform. Those who are in the wealthier have more acceptance than those who are in the middle or those who are the poorer. And similar results were also reported in Africa. Finally, the women having comprehensive knowledge have more acceptance attitudes than women with no comprehensive knowledge. This reveals that comprehensive knowledge is basic and necessary factor to build accepting attitudes towards people living with HIV/AIDS. Similar results show that women with good knowledge were more favorable towards people living with HIV/AIDS. The study has some limitations. It could be it's objective and self-reported. Another just can be having some individuals may not be willing to express their negative attitudes during the face-to-face interview, and the cross-sectional nature of the study method were unable to make any causal inference based on the associations presented. The conclusion, our study finding highlights that majority of women of 3 East African countries were aware of HIV/AIDS. Women from Burundi have higher HIV/AIDS comprehensive knowledge and acceptance attitude towards people living with HIV than women in Kenya and Ethiopia. The associated variables in Burundi and Kenya were age, women living in urban areas, educated women, and women with higher socioeconomic status. On the other hand, in Ethiopia, associated variables were women living in urban areas, educated women, and women with higher socioeconomic status. Education and information on HIV/AIDS prevention and transmission methods are necessary to all women of East African countries, and in particular to women living in rural areas, women with no educational background, and women in lower socioeconomic status of the society. Finally, the acknowledgement of the study team, also up there, and these people, and supervisor, Professor Wang Yaj from Tonju Medical College, and the data source for the demographical surveys program, the International USA. Thank you very much.